Hi, folks. I am joined right now by Erik Andersen, and Erik is developing a game called So to Speak, and we're here to talk about it. So, hello, Erik. Thanks for joining me.
Hi. Thanks for talking to me.
Absolutely. So tell us about So to Speak.
So to speak is a game prototype that I'm making about trying to make a game about language learning. So I'd spend a lot of time learning Japanese and some other languages, and I thought that this could be a great foundation for a game. And there are some games that exist that they're kind of edutainment games for language learning, including Japanese. They all have this like everything I've seen has a specific issue where there's like a game like an RPG or something that you're playing, and then there's some language content tacked into it. So like suddenly you go to fight a monster, and then there's like it's drilling you on a vocab word or something. And
Right. Yeah. I've experienced
instead,
that, and I haven't found it like I don't learn from it.
yeah, that's kind of been my experience too. And on the other hand, there have been a couple of recent games that focused on learning a fake language. One of them is called Sevian, and another one's called Heaven's Vault. And those I thought were really good. They had a much better integration of like the game mechanics and the language content, but they teach a fake language. So I set out to try to make something that would teach a real language, in this case, Japanese. Uh, and it's basically this simulated world. Like you can move the map around kind of like Google Maps, and there's signs that you see that you have to understand what they mean. You hear people saying things, you have to understand what they're saying.
Hmm.
And the key interface idea is that all the text is draggable. So like you can click on a river, and it'll say like, this is a river. And then you can use the word river to like connect it to a sign saying this is the name of the river or something like that.
Yeah, I love it because I love the idea of giving people context for what they're seeing, and when you are able to see something in context, for me anyway, like that's how I learn. Like learning through having that context-based kind of understanding, and then also being like pairing that with visual elements where you can see what the word looks like, hear what it
Mm-hmm,
sounds
mm-hmm.
like. It's just like experiential learning, and this is such a cool model for that.
Thank you. Yeah.
How did you come up with the idea for the game?
It was inspired by my own activity, like when I've been traveling, including in Japan, of like sitting there in a train station and like trying to understand like what's going on, and
Yeah.
also sort of realizing that sometimes there's clues from context that I can kind of piece together what something might be talking about. Like, okay, I bet that's talking about that, and if I know what that means, then maybe this other sign over here is talking about this. And I realized it kind of could be like a puzzle. There's like some puzzle elements to it that could be used to make a game.
I love that. That's such a like a smart way to think about it too. And I like the giving context and making it more of a puzzle because I know that like for myself like having the experience of traveling in Japan, I had a really similar sort of experience of being at first I was like confused by everything because the user interfaces are just totally different in Japan than the user interfaces here. And then after I got used to that that kind of mode of thinking, then it was so much easier to associate things in context, and then just like language started coming very fast. So I love the idea that you're like teaching people how to think about that, how to reference that for themselves. It's just such a cool idea.
Thank you.
I want to ask about like, how are you developing the game? Do you have other team members involved? Is it just you?
It's mostly me, and my wife has done some of the writing. She's a native Japanese speaker. That's helped a lot.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
my extended family has done some of the voice acting, and my brother has helped a little bit with music. But otherwise, I've been doing all the programming and the art and the design.
Oh my God. I love that you've involved like your family in such a big way. That is so
It's
cool.
Yeah, this has been fun.
That's amazing. I uh is this like your first game? Is this your 100th game? Something in between?
Sort of. So I've been working in educational games broadly for about 10 years. It started when I was doing my PhD. I worked on a math game for teaching fractions that was called Refraction. And that I worked with a team of other students and artists and my advisor at the time. And then that game actually did like fairly well. It, like on Congregate, it's been played like 500,000 times or something.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
And I love that experience of working on it. It was really fun. And then more recently, I was teaching at Cornell University, and some of the students that I work with built some games, teaching like language a little bit and also some other topics. And so that I have some experience like working with teams, but like not making it myself. And so that's been new.
That's amazing. What do you teach at Cornell?
So I used to teach at Cornell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it used to be computer science.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's awesome. I imagine that you have a lot of kids in the computer science program who are interested in games programming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So well, I guess what was the biggest challenge when it came to developing the game when you know, as you were kind of getting started and teaching yourself something sort of new?
Yeah, there's been lots of challenges. One big one is coming up with a game design that would work for what I wanted to do and scale to be big enough to cover the topic in a way that I considered to be meaningful,
Mm-hmm.
like such that somebody could sit down, but then after they played it, they didn't just like learn a couple words, they've actually learned like a fair amount of vocabulary and grammar and stuff. And not in designing in a way that could scale so that I could actually do that. And so that's been hard. It's kind of like I think of it sometimes like it's like Pokemon with 1,000 Pokemon or something that you have to capture right, and they're all like unique and different. In this case, words being like Pokemon or something. So that's probably been the biggest challenge. And I've gone through several iterations of coming up with stuff.
That's amazing. So where are you at in the game development kind of like process right now?
I am about somewhere in the middle. So I have like a working version of it that has some number of scenes. There's like maybe 100, 200 words that are already in it. And the goal is to expand that further. And so I'll keep working on it.
Awesome. So I was going to ask what's next for you, but it sounds like probably that, right?
Yeah. Trying to like actually finish the thing that I set out to start.
That's amazing. Shifting gears a little bit, I've been asking this to everybody. What kind of advice might you have for someone who wants to do what you're doing, someone who wants to develop their own games and kind of break into the industry and just has no idea how to do it?
I'm laughing because I'm thinking if you hear any really good advice, I would love to hear it myself. It's so hard. Oh my goodness. I feel like I have no real like credibility in that sense, but I do think that one thing that has made a difference is like really trying to make a routine of working on it, like worrying a little bit less about exactly whether I'm working on the right thing at a moment and more about like having a consistent process of like keeping it going and keeping working on it the same time basically. And that these kinds of like process level things of maintaining progress over time have really mattered because the development gets so protracted and like at some point you're like it's just wow this is so big and it requires some amount of self-coaching to like keep going
Yeah,
through it. Yeah.
yeah, and like project management and figuring out
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, well, today I'm going to work on the game and then you work on it for 12 hours and then you're totally burnt out and then you can't work on it the
Yeah.
next day at all. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes so much sense. I think that one of the biggest struggles for indie game creators is that it's because so many indie games are passion projects that people just fall into their work and it becomes like all consuming and they forget to actually
Mm-hmm.
take like time for life and doing other things besides developing their game. And that can be like, you know, it can be just hard to maintain and
Yeah.
not good for you overall. Um, have you experienced any kinds of like other like game jams or anything like that that like that taught you any other skills or things that that other people might be interested in as they're kind of figuring this out?
So I haven't really participated in many game jams. I mean, there's lots of great. I've been surprised like how much good information there is about basically every topic that you can find on YouTube or just searching through Google. Like I didn't have any art background at all, and I intended to do all the art myself and just learn it as I went.
Wow.
And I, of course, it's difficult,
Oh
and
yeah.
I still have such a long way to go. But I was surprised at like how generous some people seem to be with offering advice that you can just find on Google, and I'm very grateful for that. And similarly for software too, I've used lots of like free drawing programs and like free IDEs for programming and stuff that like have worked completely great. Like it's just like amazing how many resources are actually available um, for
That's
somebody who's just
amazing.
getting started.
Yeah, I've found like really similar things, like even just like the kinds of drawing programs that normally you'd think that you'd be charged an arm and a leg for, and then you find out that it's actually completely free, and you're like, wow, this is people are people are really generous about making sure that other people can do these things.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. I want to give you space for plugs. Websites, Twitter handles, things like that. How can people find and follow what you're doing?
So I'm in the process of making a website about the game, and I haven't like picked a domain in yet, but I hopefully it'll be ready by the BostonFIG itself. And I don't know, come to my virtual booth, and then
Excellent.
I'll tell you more.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I will wrap up now. Stop
Yeah,
being
thanks.
awkward.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate talking to you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
You too.